My name is William Carrion. I was asked to talk about my professional beginnings and what led me to pursue this career. Well, I'll have to go back to the grade school days. It all started in the middle school science fair project class that kicked my professional aspirations into high gear. That exciting experience drove my interest for a technical professional career, mainly driven by the inspiration and motivation provided by Mr. Lino Muñiz, who was my 8th and 9th grade science teacher. He taught me the scientific method for problem solving, and wow, that was too intense. The class was completed by presenting on projects. I prepared a science fair project and won at the school level, and that got me really excited. I also won at the regional level and qualified to participate in the 1975 International Science and Engineering Fair in Ohio. Well, but in order to get there, I had to raise funds from my family and from the Rotary Club where my aunt, Titi Edith, was a member. I'm always grateful to her, love her dearly. They helped with the plane tickets and the hotel costs. In Ohio, I won the 3rd place in biochemistry. I won the Navy Science Award and received the Air Force Science Award. Well, I had developed a process for extracting alkaloids from a plant and used them for the cure and prevention of a tropical disease called the bilharzia, schistosomiasis. Well, because of all of these achievements, I was then invited for admission in the Carrion High School, which was located about 3 hours away from home. This was a selective school for high GPA students interested in math and science curriculum. This was a boarding school and I finished my high school in 2 years. On my way from home to the school, every other weekend, I will never forget, we would drive by the Corco Oil Refinery Company in the south coast of the island. This impressive facility kept calling my attention. The Corco provided fuel for the power plants in the island. It looked really exciting and impressive. And it was one of the best paying jobs for entry-level engineers. So it was clear to me that I had to become a chemical engineer if I wanted to work there. Therefore, I set my course and pursued one main goal. 5 years later, I graduated college with a BS in chemical engineering and an Air Force ROTC commission of second lieutenant. But along the way, things changed for me. By 1982, the Corco plant was shutting down and I was halfway invested in my chemistry degree. Yes, it was devastated, but I kept going forward. Fortunately, by the time I finished my degree, the pharmaceutical industry was growing in the island and there were few chemical engineers available. And right after graduation, I was offered a job with the Bristol-Myers Squibb company. Later, the Procter & Gamble company offered me a job closer to my home and I continued learning and escalating positions. I was given a management position very early in my career. And in order to remain competitive, I went on to complete my MBA degree at night school. For 20 years, I took 5 jobs with Fortune 500 companies in Puerto Rico, Boston, Mass, and Dallas, Texas, always of high responsibility and high compensation. I finished a vice president position of a pharma company, then I returned to Puerto Rico when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Here, I was offered a senior engineering position in the largest consulting engineering company, which specializes in water infrastructure projects. We were managing the construction of 10 water treatment plants, 2 regional sewage plants, and the Fajardo and the Rio Blanco water reservoir dams. Beautiful, fantastic, beautiful projects. Because of all my infrastructure experience, I was later offered an executive position in the Puerto Rico Water Company, where I worked for 7 years. In 2012, I organized and registered the Carrion Imports LLC and started my own private consulting firm. Today, we're celebrating more than 10 years of growth and success of the CCG consulting company. We own 2 domestic companies and 1 international company, the Carrion International. And all of my 3 daughters, Eves, Liliana, and Jennifer, hold executive positions in the enterprises. We provide direct employment to over 30 professionals and another 15 indirect jobs. It all kicked into gear on 8th grade. To Mr. Lino Muñiz and to all my teachers and family, I am very grateful. My family played a key role in realizing my fullest potential. I am so grateful and so blessed for that. When I was young, my family was my bubble of support and joy. I grew up in a working class family and loving home. My parents would dance in the living room as I watched and learned, and I saw their happy faces. I was a happy kid. My dad was a salesman in a hardware store, and from him I learned a lot. I learned how to use tools. He taught me about construction materials, measurements, plumbing, electricity, carpentry, welding, inventory, and much, much more. I thought then that I would build things later in life. I would spend my summers shadowing my dad in the store and learning how to deal with customers, learning how to deal with people. Well, no summer camps available for me at those times. In 7th grade, he allowed me to deliver the newspaper for my neighbors. I would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning every day in my bag to deliver the papers. And by 8 a.m., I was in class. I kept good grade. If it rained, my dad would drive me in his car to deliver my route. And I always maintained a 3.9 GPA. He always emphasized the school academics. My mom worked in a pharmaceutical company, the Johnson & Johnson, great company. One summer I was allowed a part-time job at the plant laboratory, and this was eye-opening. It opened the doors for me to learn the ways about a modern manufacturing plant. I learned the regulatory framework of manufacturing. I learned chemistry. I learned statistical sampling, reports writing, and the work ethics on a sophisticated and competitive environment. I was very proud, and Mom was very proud of the lab technician apprentice. I thought then that I wanted to work in this field. So I became a chemical engineer 2 years after that apprenticeship. From her, I learned the values of hard work, commitment, and aspirations. So soon after college, I had worked in several Fortune 500 companies, great companies. And by age 33, I was leading the construction project of a 500-employee manufacturing plant for the Colgate-Palmolive in Puerto Rico. I was the plant manager, and I had implemented a family day and the apprenticeship program. I was the president of the Board of Engineers in Caguas chapter. I was member of the Puerto Rico Manufacturer Association, the PRMA. I had a master's degree in business, and I had Anna, my loving wife, 3 daughters, and many, many good friends. Every year from then on, I was reaping the benefits of hard work early in life. Now, who do I thank for all these? Where did I get all these skills in life? Well, only from Mom and Dad. May they rest in peace. To them, I dedicate all my achievements. They taught me well. It has been an intense life, and I am starting to get tired. To my daughters and my grandchildren, Diego and Guillermo, I dedicate the next chapters in life of this wonderful life as they provide me the fuel to keep going. I want to make sure that they are all well trained and set for this life because family is first. Someone asked me about a significant event in life that I endured and marked my character and my person. There are few, but there's one that does the trick, certainly. I was born in New York, in the Bronx, and at age 5, my parents moved to Puerto Rico. At that time, they didn't think that growing a family in the Bronx was the best place, so they made a decision to come back to the island. So here I grew up, and I witnessed the change from an agricultural to an industrial-based economy. I lived here the Hurricane Hugo, and 10 years later, Hurricane Georges. I was activated in the reserves for the Gulf War. I lived the 9/11 attack. Then came Irma and Maria hurricanes, the pandemic and the earthquakes. So one can say that these were rough times. But Maria was the most devastating thing one can imagine. Our daughters, I remember, were all in the States when the hurricane struck in 2017, September 2017 to be precise. The entire island vegetation was flattened by the winds and the rain. It lasted endless hours on an endless night that I won't ever forget. And when you walked out of your house, you realized that your country was devastated. Power lines and trees and debris all prevented the use of the roads. No way to contact my daughters. The cell towers were down, no one survived. The supermarkets were damaged and the food was scarce. Water service was interrupted and the gas station lines lasted overnight. Power was out in my zone for 5 months. I remember seeing helicopters dropping water and food in some communities that had lost the access to the roads, and the Navy comfort ship arrived in San Juan to provide medical support. My first grandson, I won't ever forget, Diego, was at the Boston Children's Hospital under treatment and could not return to the island for months. The radio station was up and running and provided more tragic news every day as the emergency crews reached the most isolated communities. Over 2,900 people dead, someone reported. It was a scene from the horror movie that you don't ever want to see. The kind of experience that marks you forever. I could not stop thinking, how are we going to fix all of this? What was a crowning achievement as a professional? Wow, I was very fortunate. In 2018, I was hired to work on the damage assessment for the Puerto Rico Power Authority as related to the Hurricane Maria disaster. This was the most devastating tropical event in the history of the island. And PREPA needed highly skilled and seasoned engineers to drive this huge effort and formally present a claim to the FEMA agency. I was asked to lead the claim and to organize a team of experts for this mission. So I did. First thing I did was ask my oldest daughter, Eve, to return to the island and work with us. She had been a civil engineer for 10 years working in the US for large engineering firms, and she promptly accepted and took a lead role in the company and in the team. Thank you, Eve. For the next 2 years, our CCG consulting team worked tirelessly. We reviewed and documented thousands of damaged assets, miles of damaged transmission line, thousands of power poles, substations. More than 650 inspections were carried out in substations, power plants, facilities, thousands of miles of transmission and distribution lines. The latter was quite a challenge as 80% of the lines laid in the ground in mountainous areas, making a physical analysis difficult and in some cases even impossible. For this reason, the CCG team formulated a statistical sampling system to estimate the extent of the damage in in-hospital areas and thus mitigate and reduce the risk of the work teams. The CCG consulting team completed the $10+ billion claim that was approved by FEMA on September 2020. And this became the largest single applicant claim ever approved in the FEMA history. Well, the previous 45 years of life experience gave me the standing to be prepared. I have developed a strong organization and management skill that I polished on my Fortune 500 years. I have the technical and business skills that I needed to succeed. I have learned about public service. I know a lot about water. I know about the power company infrastructure. So I am perfectly prepared to provide the technical competence that my country needs at this stage. Never thought that I would be able to help so much. It makes me so happy. And yes, you may say it was a big break, but I was ready to execute. I am getting older. As I get older, I became more curious about my ancestors. I learned that they were business people and worked in the agriculture. There were numerous family members, which I only met my uncles. Never met my grandpas, none of them, and that I miss. But my uncles and my aunts were always united and supportive. They were happy and fun to be around. Half of them lived in New York and the other half on the island, and they would visit each other every so often. As I try to dig deeper in the past, it becomes harder and harder. Very few events were properly documented back when. Marriage and funerals mainly, and some information is even confusing. So I wish I had known them better. I wish that I had more information. It's just a personal curiosity. As I do my family research, I learn that I was the first engineer in the family. Interesting. What else could I be missing from my family tree? I leave this brief documentation for my grandchildren, my treasure. Here for you is a glimpse of the struggles and the blessings that I received. To shape the family history is something positive, and to leave a better tomorrow for you to flourish. Honor your ancestors as they shape the soul of the Carrion family. Honor your family.